Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to episode number 78 of the Primetime Rundown right here on the Eastern Observer. Our show is presented to you by Black Cats NYC alongside my guys Ian Schreier, Rob DeLuca, and of course Mike Zabo back with us. I'm Joey Jarzynka. Cannot thank you all enough for joining us here for another episode on another Friday night here in mid-January. Ian, good to see you, sir. How are things on your side of Long Island?
Well, I can't believe it was only a few months ago, Joey, that we were previewing all of the divisions, doing our full NFL preview, and we've officially hit Super Wildcard Weekend, and Black Monday came and went, and it was very special for three Giants fans in the room, which we'll get to with our special guest here momentarily, but everything's going well. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable, and of course, I'm an Eagles fan. I look and I just say to myself, well, it's tough when you don't have cap space heading into next year. But I expect. I mean, hey, listen, $2 million in the hole. You're gonna have to shed a lot of salary. But what I can tell you is that the Eagles will be losing by probably 45 on Sunday. So it should be a ton of fun there. DeLuca, good to see you, sir. How are things on your side of the river?
Everything's good here. Can't complain too much. As Ian said, Black Monday came. It was a beautiful day for Giants fans. We'll get into that. It's going to be a packed show as per usual. Got Mike Zaba with us, our special guest, just about to come on. So, as always, we've been on a roll in 2022. We're just going to keep it going with another great show for you.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Mike Zabo, good to see you, sir. How are things on your side of Queens?
Doing well. Now that you said that about the Eagles, as how everything has gone this year, you're going to do the double jinx, and now it's going to mean that the Eagles are going to give the Bucks a run for their money now because you said that. So great for us New York fans.
I mean, I could tell you this much, no, that's not going to happen. Definitely will not happen. But exactly what Rob DeLuca did say, we have another packed show for you, ladies and gentlemen. Episode number 78 is presented to you by Black Cats NYC. Be sure to download their newest hit song called Run, Rudolph, Run from the holiday season. They have yet to come out with a couple of new songs, but this is their most recent song. And of course, you can download their newest album as well, which is called Free Cake. You can download it on Apple Music, Deezer, YouTube, SoundCloud, Amazon Music, YouTube, Pandora, and Spotify. And of course, as we brought up to you, we have a packed show tonight. Nick Filato will be with us as well. He is a writer and podcast host of Big Blue View and a member of the Professional Football Writers Association. So we're going to be welcoming him in here momentarily, and we will also be having some hockey talk as well, in addition to, of course, the two college teams in the area that we do cover, Seton Hall and St. John's. We got a chance to see St. John's yesterday fall in overtime to UConn, and Seton Hall, they're losing to DePaul right now on FS1. But with that being said, we do have some New York Giants talk, and of course, ladies and gentlemen, let us bring in our special guest, Nick Filato. Nick, good to see you, sir. Thank you so much for coming on here. Great to meet you. And how are things on your side of the country in Arizona where you are?
I got to tell you guys, thank you so much for having me, first off. And secondly, I walked my dog before in a T-shirt and shorts. It's beautiful. I spent a month in Jersey during the holidays. I'm from New Jersey originally, love New Jersey. But I got to tell you, man, this whole, teen degree thing, like I'm not about that. 18 degrees out, 20 degrees out. No. This Arizona life is pretty good unless it's in the summer, and then it gets a little bit insufferable.
Let me tell you something. I mean, I am extremely jealous because here on Long Island I think it was 2 days ago, DeLuca, I think it was, 2 days ago, it was, I believe, a high of 15 degrees Fahrenheit over here.
Roughly, about 15 degrees, with the wind chill, you got it down to about 0. So it was a beautiful day.
Yeah, and you know what? And me and Nick can relate because I had to walk my dog when it was about 7 at night and a wind chill of about -2. So, I got to tell you, I am extremely jealous. But, Nick, thank you so much for coming on here. And as we said earlier, in our pre-production, you are a former Marine, and I cannot thank you enough for your service as well. Semper Fi, Marine. Thank you for your service to this country. But let's get things started here with the New York Giants, of course. We got a chance to see, and all New York Giants fans are extremely happy. There are a select few, which I did see on the cesspool of Twitter, Nick, that some were happy that Dave Gettleman was retiring. But then there were also some other people saying that Joe Judge should be retained. And obviously that didn't happen. Me as an Eagles fan, I sit here and say to myself, when you basically have a QB sneak on 3rd and 9 from the 4-yard line of your own 4, this whole team, this whole roster, coaching staff, everyone is given up. What did you see in the last game of the 2021 season for the Giants?
So first off, the last 6 games has just been unwatchable from the offense, essentially since the Giants defeated the Philadelphia Eagles 13-7, and that was the same game when Daniel Jones was injured. And ever since then, the Mike Glennon experience has been terrible. The offensive line has just been so pathetic. I honestly think it's the worst offensive line I've ever seen since covering the National Football League, to be honest with you. And I think the offense has been the worst I've ever seen as well. And I think Joe Judge, I think he was dealt a bad hand in terms of having Dave Gettleman as his general manager. Dave Gettleman came in here. He sold the idea that they were going to fix this offensive line. He invested picks in the offensive line in the 2020 draft with Matt Parrott. Didn't work out. Shane Lemieux, he was injured this year, so I don't want to say that didn't work out, but he wasn't there in 2021. And then Andrew Thomas, who developed well. But still, man, you needed to invest in the offensive line in 2021. There was no depth, and we were pounding the table on Big Blue Banter. That is the podcast myself and CBS's Dan Schneier host. You need to still invest in the offensive line. And what they do? They went out and they signed Zach Fulton and Joe Looney, who both left before training camp was even over. I mean, it was a huge oversight by Dave Gettleman. In terms of that last game, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised they called the quarterback sneak. I mean, against Chicago the week before, they attempted to run the football in that same situation. They got stuffed twice, resulting in a safety. So I wasn't all that shocked that Joe Judge made that decision. It was a 3-0 game, and possibly the best chance to, quote-unquote, win was to even punt the football in that situation, which is disgusting. I hate saying that, and it is just absolutely gross. But the reality of the situation is that offense was putrid. It was terrible. They couldn't do anything. And I'm not shocked that Joe Judge was let go for a variety of different reasons. I think he embarrassed the organization with that 11-minute rant after the Chicago loss. I think the QB sneak wasn't a good optic, and I think John Mara kind of really looks into those optics. And at the end of the day, it's a results-oriented business, and he didn't win any games. He didn't win football games, so we shouldn't be shocked that he wasn't retained. You need a clean slate. You're going to bring in a new general manager. You can't hamstring him with Joe Judge. And I kind of agree with John Mara, to be honest, guys. I think Joe Judge has the potential to be a good head football coach, but that wasn't in this first run around here, and I don't believe the Giants should have committed another season to him because he hasn't proven that he can win in the National Football League. So I'm fine with the firing, and I think the vast majority of fans are, but I'm sure on that cesspool you were referring to, known as Twitter, there are several detractors from that.
Yeah, and you know what? And there was actually a player that you did not mention, Jake Fromm. You would figure Jake from State Farm. You would think, Nick, that maybe you would think that, he would get some quality reps or anything along those lines. He couldn't get anything going. And you brought up a lot of it because of that putrid offensive line. You used that word a few times, before. And I mean, when you got a chance to see Nate Solder, who was supposed to be the left tackle, I don't want to call it the future, but he was supposed to be the savior on the left side. He eventually, got hurt, couldn't get things done. He was a disastrous signing. He was moved over to right tackle. Now my last question to you is, before we get to the rest of us here, this team is now $2 million over the salary cap, which is slated to move up, I think, to $212 million, something like that. And right now they are committed to $214 million. This is a team that, in my opinion, Nick, has really good potential on paper and cannot get it done on the football field. Where do they go from here in some, required moves that they're going to have to do that eventually, that most likely will also be really tough decisions to make in the end?
It's difficult to really say right now because we don't know who the general manager is. And once the general manager comes in, we'll kind of get a little bit more clarity, especially with the head coaching hire that he brings in. But in terms of things that they can do, they can push contracts back, like, Howie Roseman has done in the past and the Saints have famously done. They did that last season with James Bradberry and Blake Martinez. James Bradberry didn't have his premier season that he had the year prior. Blake Martinez was hurt, which was unfortunate, but I still think both those guys can be corner pieces if the Giants decide that they can compete next season. And I think that's going to be, you always want to compete, but I think they have to be real with the situation. And if that offensive line isn't, upgraded significantly. And I think that's going to be difficult because even if you spend 2 top 10 picks on that offensive line, you're going to have a third-year player in Andrew Thomas and 2 rookies on your offensive line with who else? Because they don't have anybody else on that offensive line. So I think the Giants need to be real with this situation. Like I said, I think you can kick some of that salary cap back, hopefully, and you're going to have to make some tough decisions on players that you're going to release. Sterling Shepard tore his Achilles late in the season, and I believe he was probably going to be a cap casualty even if he was healthy. I think Riley Dixon is like the 3rd highest paid punter or something like that in the league, which is insane because he's wildly inconsistent. I think all of those types of players are very, very expendable, and the Giants are probably going to take that route to kind of just at least sign their rookie class, which I feel like they will do. The salary cap, it's not necessarily hard. Like, you can maneuver the salary cap. Plenty of teams have proven that in the past, and the Giants are going to have to get creative in that area in order to at least compete in 2022.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And, really for Dave Gettleman, who really didn't even have the stones to face the media afterwards, after the final game, he hasn't spoken since training camp. Really crazy stuff to see. And, when you're dealing with the New York media, all of us know out here, it's a disaster. We live in it. It's not a good look. And especially for the New York Football Giants, and the same thing with the Jets too. Everybody has their eyes on the Jets and the Giants. And when you're bad, you're going to be getting the poop end of the stick, if you will, if you don't come to, if you don't give them quality answers or anything like that, and they will attack you like vultures. DeLuca, let's go to you here.
Sure thing. All right, Nick, let's talk draft a little bit. Now that it's gonna be a new regimen, so complete overhaul. It's a beautiful thing, a much needed thing for the New York Giants. So obviously we're gonna have to wait and see who gets hired, but obviously that will be solved within the next few weeks. And it's clear what this team's needs are. There's offensive line is an obvious need. There also talk, they could use a guy on the edge for defensive purposes, and maybe even quietly they could use another set of hands out on that receiving core because you never know what you're getting with Evan Ingram. You don't know what you're getting with Darius Slayton. So Kenny Galladay did not perform well whatsoever.
He didn't get a touchdown the whole year. I saw that stat. I couldn't believe it. Him and Kadarius Toney.
That's a stat I'm hoping never pops up near me ever again. That was the most shocking thing I've ever seen.
Andrew Thomas got a touchdown.
Andrew Thomas got a touchdown. Let's never forget that.
Yes, he did.
That was a beautiful play. Andrew Thomas is a legend forever because of it. But yeah, Nick, what do you see as the absolute have to do with picks 5 and 7 for the New York Giants? Do we go both offensive line? Do they go offensive line and an edge? Or how do you play this?
I think everything's on the table. First off, I think trading back is going to be on the table. It depends on if other teams want to trade up. And since this is kind of a weaker quarterback class, I don't necessarily see that being in such high demand to the point where the Giants can get high draft capital for possibly next year, where there's going to be a little bit more of quarterback options, but there's still so much to play out. You still have the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Game, the Combine. All of those things will give a little bit more clarity to just the entire situation. I'm not really hell-bent on one position other than I think one of those picks needs to be invested in the offensive line because there are several good offensive linemen, so at least one. If they do two, I'm not going to complain. I don't think many Giant fans would complain, to be frank, to be honest with you. And honestly, looking at some of those edges, I don't think the Giants will probably have an opportunity to select Oregon's Kayvon Thibodeau or Michigan's Aiden Hutchinson, but the kid from Purdue is still a stud. David Njabo from Michigan, he's another stud. There's still a lot of other players that the Giants could have interest in who are those second-level defenders or those edge type of players. So I'm really excited, honestly, for the draft. And I haven't dove in deep into the film quite yet. I mean, I'm just starting to – last 2 weeks I've been really getting to the film, and I'm really, really excited to dive into some of those top-level prospects because I do believe having 2 top 10 picks is incredibly exciting during draft. And guess what? Both teams do, right? Because I believe the Jets have 2 top 10 picks, and that's just the total state of New York right now. I mean, how pathetic is that? I mean, it's awesome. But at the same time, it's because of mediocre football. And, we'll be happy at the end of April, but hopefully, you don't win the offseason in the draft. So you need to do a little bit more than just that. You need to nail these picks, man. Because how many missed picks have the Giants had in the past? They got players like Will Hernandez, who I thought was going to be a good football player, never developed past his rookie season. You need to be better than that. You need to have a higher percentage than that. The draft is not a certain science by any stretch of the imagination, but you got to draft players who are going to fit into whatever system you bring in terms of the offensive coordinator or new head coach, which is still obviously unclear.
Yeah, couldn't agree more there, Nick. It's hard to believe Giants fans are finally excited about a draft after all these years of selections. It's actually exciting to be a Giants fan right now for this offseason.
Yeah, because Dave Gettleman is not the one making those picks.
Exactly, Joey. So let's move forward here. I got another one for you. Let's talk a little bit about Daniel Jones. It seems like this guy can't stay healthy. He's had an injury that's kept him out every season of his career so far. So
sounds like Carson Wentz.
That's definitely a problem. Never ever insult Daniel Jones like that again, Joey. Never insult another football player like that again.
Okay, keep going. Go ahead.
So let's talk Jones. Do you think if the Giants rebuild the line a little bit through the draft or even free agency, I don't know how they're going to do that without money, but they'll restructure some contracts. I'm sure they're going to restructure a lot of contracts to get their money back. And do you think we could see more out of Daniel Jones if there is actually a halfway decent offensive line there? Same thing goes for Saquon Barkley. Can we get him back to rookie season Saquon?
I think yes to both of those questions. I think you can get more out of Daniel Jones, but what we've seen from Daniel Jones isn't inspiring necessarily. So more isn't exactly desirable. I think in order to win in this league, you need to get one of those top level type of quarterbacks, those Justin Herberts, those Josh Allens, those Patrick Mahomes. I don't think Daniel Jones ever has the capability to become that. Now, I think Daniel Jones is better than what we've seen. I think Daniel Jones can be a player that you can win with in the league if everything around him is good. His athletic ability is very, very underrated. And I believe Jason Garrett did a solid job utilizing that in 2021, not as well in 2022, or 2020, but we've seen he gets injured when you utilize that. He presumably got injured on that, I think it was like second play against the Eagles where he kind of got hit in the neck on a designed quarterback run. And overall, for me, Daniel Jones, I still think he has some processing issues from pre to post snap. What he thinks he sees, if it's not there, that predetermined read, then he gets a little bit happy feet and he panics just a little bit. Now, it's hard to fully commit to that when his offensive line was as atrocious, or as I like to say, putrid as they were. So I believe Daniel Jones probably won't have his fifth-year option picked up. I think the new general manager is going to want to look at other options because this isn't his guy. Daniel Jones is not his guy. Daniel Jones was overdrafted when he was the sixth pick back in 2019, and I don't think he's lived up to that draft selection. I think he's a good kid. I think he can be a solid to slightly above average quarterback, but I think that's in the best situation, and I don't think he has those game-changing type of Justin Herbert abilities in his wheelhouse. So, the Giants are going to have to commit a contract to him, and I don't think he's the guy you give a contract to. You allow him to play this season out, and if he really impresses and really takes another step forward, then yeah, you can start talking about extending him and all of that. I don't necessarily envision that, and I like Daniel Jones. I do. I think he could be a really high-quality backup, but the Giants, I think the new general manager is going to go in another direction.
Yeah, Mike's up. Go ahead.
Yeah, Nick, on some of the more front office end of things, we see a lot with the Giants. You see the rumors and leaks of who they're interviewing and what's being talked about. I know Joe Schoen, the Bills' assistant general manager, is a hot name out there. It seems like through all this process, the Giants might finally go out and get somebody from outside the organization, which they haven't done in forever. What do you think's really pushed them, I guess, to really get there? And then I guess on the head coaching end also, what would be your best, your number one choice as of right now if you had to make the choice? I know the GM candidate would affect it, whoever comes in as GM, but what would be your dream hiring scenario in those two situations?
I don't have a dream hiring scenario, not to cop out of the question. I like the prospects of a Brian Flores because I respect his defense. But, there are rumors that he didn't really get along with everybody in Miami. And I can't really read into that. I don't personally know. But if that's the case, my main thing is I want a stable coaching general manager relationship. So that's going to start with the general manager, and the general manager is going to pick his guy, and I want those guys to be aligned with each other. It seemed like there was alignment with Joe Judge and Dave Gettleman, even though Dave Gettleman was brought in a year or 2 years prior to Joe Judge arriving in the Meadowlands. But that's what I want. I want that established thing. And in terms of why they're looking outside of the organization, is because I think they look back to 2018. They're like, bro, we screwed up. Who'd they interview in 2018? Louis Riddick, a TV personality, Kevin Abrams, a guy who's in-house, and then another person who was in-house for the general manager job, and then Dave Gettleman, who's essentially in-house, but, he was just fired from Carolina. That was their interview process. They didn't do their due diligence in terms of looking for a general manager. And I think John Mara looked in the mirror. He realized it. I also think John Mara had big ears, and he hears what a lot of people are saying outside. And I mean, we've been bashing that hire for a while now because it hasn't necessarily worked out. It's been unconventional. He's mocked things like analytics that I don't believe analytics on everything, but I definitely believe they're a piece to the puzzle, and you should try and, give yourself an opportunity to win by looking at every piece of the puzzle that has had success in the past. So I think John Mara noticed that, hey, it didn't work last time, and I think he even acknowledged it in his presser. We didn't do our due diligence as much as we probably could have. So now he's going to do it. Look at successful organizations. You got Shane from the Bills. You have guys from Kansas City. You have multiple guys from the Titans, all organizations that have been playing or who will be playing in the playoffs. So I like that. I can't really, give too much analysis on who these guys are because I don't know what picks they made or the extent of the impact that they had on their rosters because they're not general managers. But you do want a cohesive relationship between coaching, between general managers, and that's, I think, a good foundation to build upon to move forward. And it's going to start with the general manager as it should. But I don't know. Do you guys have any and the Giant fans in here? Who are your coaching? I'm fascinated by the coaching search. I really am. And I'm not, and I don't have one right now that I'm like, I want that guy. But I could go offensive. I can go defensive. I can rerun a special teams thing. I'm kind of open to everything. What's on your guys' minds with that?
I'm thinking if the Giants go Schoen, I think he's gonna take his guy Dabble with. He's gonna take Dabble with him, and there'll be a package deal together, which I'd be more than thrilled with. I'd also take Brian Flores as coach. There's no question about that. I think he's the hottest commodity out there in terms of head coaches. So I think that's a way to go. Outside of Schoen, I'm not really sure where I am at the GM. I'm seeing who they're interviewing, and there's a lot of intriguing names that they have said they've already interviewed. So it's definitely an exciting time to think. But yeah, I would say my ideal candidate for GM is Schoen, and then for coach, either one of Flores or Dabble.
Nice.
For the coaching position, I know everybody mentions Brian Flores. I love Eric Bieniemy and the thought of him. I think he's a name not mentioned quite enough. I think he's been calling plays in Kansas City with Andy Reid and for Patrick Mahomes. The biggest problem with the Giants is offense, especially the last couple of years. I think that would be an interesting hire.
It would. And it's so crazy. I find all of this kind of crazy because the NFL is so cyclical. So remember after Pat Shurmur was fired, that was obviously after Ben McAdoo was fired, both offensive minds, both coaches who were play callers. And that pissed a lot of Giant fans off. And I was one of those guys like, hey, look, I don't believe this head coach is actually focusing on the entirety of being a head coach. He's focusing too much on the offense. Maybe we should hire somebody with a special teams background. We did that, did not work out in Joe Judge. And now we saw how pathetic the offense was. Now we want another play caller to come in as head football coach. I think that's definitely a course of action that they can look to execute. But at the same time, even if they go with a defensive guy, Vic Fangio, which Wink Martindale, maybe I should say more than Vic Fangio. I haven't seen too much linkage between Vic Fangio, although I do love his defensive mind of Brian Flores. If they can bring in the right offensive coordinator, then that's a win right there, man. Because Joe Judge and John Mara might have had something to do with this as well because he loves Jason Garrett. Bringing in Jason Garrett was a huge mistake. And then bringing him back was an even bigger mistake just because of continuity because Daniel Jones. And now Daniel Jones got to learn a whole nother system. And it's a really bad situation for Daniel Jones, to be honest. I think it was a bad situation for Joe Judge, too.
Ian Schreier, finish us off. I think you are muted, sir. There we go.
I do apologize. But Nick, thank you so much for coming on. As a fellow Giant fan and a Giant season ticket holder as well, it's I think the pieces to me that I would love to see come to the Giants, and I know Rob already. I mean, my perfect combination is the Schoen Dabble combination. I love what they've done in Buffalo with Sean McDermott. I think that they've really built something special out there with Josh Allen, and obviously Josh Allen came out of the draft with the most to prove because he didn't come from a Power 5 school. He wasn't Josh Rosen. He wasn't Baker Mayfield. And he wasn't Sam Darnold, and he's
a bunch of names there.
And he's turned out to be the best of the group. But I mean, the only other quarterback I left out of the discussion at the end of the draft, that was Lamar Jackson. But I guess the piece to me that I think would be very, very interesting, and I have a couple of questions here for you as well, is an interesting thought for GM. And I know a lot of things keep radiating about potentially Jim Harbaugh wanting to leave Michigan, maybe to come to the Giants, which is a scary thought. But is taking somebody from the front office from Baltimore. You want to talk about a team and a front office that repeatedly continues to misuse their draft capital, just miss on picks year after year. And somehow Ozzie Newsome and that crew down in Baltimore always find a way to get the draft right year upon year upon year, always have a great process towards free agency, and just always seemed, I mean, listen, they may not be in the playoffs this year, but every year they're always contending for that playoff spot. And that's something that the Giants have been lacking. But speaking of, the Giants way, right, Nick? I mean, that's something that we've heard John Mara and the Giants refer to for so long, because that's what worked under his father. And, the tradition of the Giants way and making the playoffs and contending for the NFC East every year. And look, the Giants have made the playoffs once in the last 10 years. And obviously we remember the boat everything with the boat and Odell and the performance in Green Bay. But do you feel, I mean, it seems like John Mara's finally going to move past the Giants way. It seems like Dave Gettleman was finally the end of listening to guys like Ernie Accorsi and guys who just really aren't in their element anymore. Where do things stand with the Giants way, in your opinion, as they proceed to hire a general manager and a new head coach?
Oh, I think the Giants way, quote unquote, which used to, yield a lot of success, is out the door. Kind of like what I talked about before, because of Dave Gettleman, as you alluded to. That was a Giants type of hire, just a homegrown guy, helped us win 2 Super Bowls, went to Carolina, had some success, helped them get to a Super Bowl, even though that was a lot of Marty Herney's roster. But it didn't work out. He had a good plan, a good message, all of that. At least that's what he sold to John Mara. Didn't work out. So I think John Mara, like I said before, has big ears, and he hears how all of us are like, hey, man, like, you need to do something different. And he took that, which is good, which is what you want your owner to do. And now he's going to look outside of the organization and try something a little bit different. And I also think it's not a coincidence that every one of those general managers is, I think, 43 or younger, because Dave Gettleman was such a, as he referred to himself, a dinosaur. So I think that's another aspect, somebody who's going to be a little bit more fresh with his way to evaluate and build a roster. Whereas Dave Gettleman was a little bit antiquated. I think he gets maybe more flack than he probably deserves for the like, investing in the defensive line is something that I feel like he did probably a little bit too much of, but at the same time, there was a lot of value in bringing in defensive linemen if you want to run tight front, too high defenses, which is something that Patrick Graham did frequently, and a lot of small teams are doing that right now. So a lot of people bash Dexter Lawrence and a lot of those picks. I don't necessarily think they're as egregious as other people, but that's just me kind of going on a tangent.
I mean, I do want to say I would have liked to have seen a couple of edge rushers over maybe a couple of defensive tackles. I mean, granted, I did like the picks of players like BJ Hill and Dexter Lawrence for sure. My whole piece on, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, Nick, was they had released, I believe it was Pro Football Focus, and I'm just going to go off on a point here and I'll come back. The all-rookie offensive line, and 4 of the 5 rookies on that all-rookie offensive line were available to the Giants at 11. Now, I know we're all excited about the fact that the Giants have 2 top 10 picks, but even after they lost Devontae Smith to the Eagles, that they had the opportunity to grab Rashawn Slater, who obviously is molding himself into a great left tackle, or Micah Parsons, who is very likely going to be the defensive rookie of the year in the National Football League, and instead decided to trade down for Kadarius Toney, who barely saw the field this year. We hope he comes back healthy next year, but obviously this all falls back on the shoulders of Dave Gettleman. And we saw how Gettleman went out, retirement. We saw how Judge went out 24 hours later. I'll come back to that. But do you feel that Gettleman, the way he's been walked out by everybody, because he's technically considered Giants royalty for everything he did for the organization when they went to those 2 Super Bowls, do you feel that, there were, I've seen it both ways, that they let him walk the way he wanted, or should he have been kind of ushered out and pushed out the door in the same way Judge was to really make a statement to the fan base that we're going to try to change?
Honestly, I didn't mind them letting him retire. I know a lot of people probably won't like that, but if what John Mara said is true, that you couldn't interview those other general managers, the only general managers that you can interview are ones that were free agents, then who is he going to interview? Scott Pioli and people like that. if that is true, then I don't mind it personally. I think it actually might send a good message out just around the NFL. It's like, look, even if you suck, because Dave Gettleman sucked, won't disgrace your name. Now I say that, and then you look back to 2017, what happened with Jerry Reese? He got ushered out, and that was a whole nother thing, especially because John Mara signed off on allowing Geno Smith to start that game, supposedly. So I think maybe he might have regretted sending Jerry Reese off like that. Maybe he did. I'm not 100% certain. But I wasn't somebody throwing a fit about that entire situation personally.
My last question to you, Nick, and again, thank you so much for taking some time with us here. The big piece to me, I mean, listen, I was listening to WFAN and hearing guys like Chris McGonigal in disbelief that Dave Gettleman was out the door, but Joe Judge wasn't going with him, and that everything alluded to the fact that John Mara wanted Joe Judge for one more year because they felt he just got a raw deal. And you outlined a lot of the pieces as to why he's no longer here. But it seemed like, based on a report that I read today from New York Daily News reporter Pat Leonard, was that a lot changed in 24 hours once Steve Tisch got to the building, because it seemed like John Mara wanted Joe Judge to stay, but clearly from the other 50% of ownership, he did not want Judge to stay. They kind of wanted to throw the baby out with the bathwater, to use that proverb there. What, in your opinion, happened in that 24 hours between Gettleman and Judge that shifted Judge out of the building is with him?
Well, I think the last 6 weeks helped ship Judge out of the building. I think, like I said, the weird Bears post-game rant helped shift him out of the building. The kneeling helped shift him out of the building. And I think, personally, John Mara just wanted Joe Judge to work out because he bought into what Joe Judge was selling. I think Joe Judge is a great orator. He's great at speaking. I think he really knows the X's and O's. He knows football really, really well inside and out. Doesn't necessarily make him a good coach. And I don't think John Mara wanted to do another two-and-done situation. He said that when he hired Joe Judge. At the same time, he said he wants to feel like the organization is headed in the right direction. And I don't think anybody who supports the Giants or anybody who knows football would say the Giants felt like they were heading in the right direction at the tail end of the 2021 season. Now, are there excuses? Fine. Yes. But everybody has excuses right now, and you can't be that abysmal and expect to be retained. And I think Steve Tisch kind of saw a lot of that too. I mean, he's, part owner of the New York Giants. And I think they probably looked at everything involved. Dave Gettleman is gone. We need to bring in a new general manager. Do we really want to hamstring that general manager with Coach Judge? And I think that was a huge, or not even a huge decision. I think that was just an easy decision of no. And I think John Mara just was like, I don't want to fire him after 2 seasons, and he believes in Joe Judge. But then when Tisch stepped in, if that report is true, kind of helped push him in that direction, because I think it's hard for John Mara or anybody with eyes to argue the Giants were in a good position at the end of the 2021 season, because it was very, very embarrassing. And I think the organization was embarrassed. And John Mara even said it's the lowest point ever being the Giants owner right now. So why would you bring the coach back who was the one who was watching over and supervising the lowest point of this entire situation, even though it wasn't a great situation? Still, man, you need to clean your house. You need to start fresh. And I'm glad the Giants did it.
Unbelievable stuff. Nick Filato, writer, podcast host of Big Blue View and member of the Professional Football Writers Association. Nick, thank you so much. And the last thing that I just want to bring up here is that you had brought up earlier about Dave Gettleman considering himself a dinosaur. Do we remember, all of us, I think we had this conversation, Ian and DeLuca and myself, we had this conversation where there was a picture floating around, and Nick, you may know this, or remember, if you will, where Dave Gettleman was using a Nintendo Wii to make some, I believe it was to make some draft picks or use some analytics or to watch film or something like that. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Nintendo Wii was completely out of support and everything like that. And this man was still using it. And I remember I said this to my other friend, and I said, yeah, this is your general manager. He's using a Nintendo Wii. I might as well use a Nintendo 64 to figure stuff out. Yeah, that's pretty good. Nick, do you remember that?
Vaguely, I remember that. But there's plenty of dinosaur moments from Dave Gettleman throughout his tenure. He kind of embraced it, to be honest, during all the press conferences. He was a wacky, interviewer and everything. I think he was entertaining, to be honest. But at the end of the day, man, like, you just did not fix this situation. You were slightly arrogant about things at times. And I don't think you're going to find many people who are Giant fans who would have thought that Dave Gettleman did a good job at the end of this tenure. Yes, injuries played a part, but guess what? Injuries are a part of football. You did not replenish the depth. You, as I said it on the Big Blue Banter podcast, had coaching hubris. You thought you were going to be able to coach up all these young assets on the offensive line. Matt Parrott didn't even seem like he wanted to win the starting job over Nate Solder. You got to know that from a personality standpoint. There were just so many mistakes and so many misses throughout his tenure that it's good to start fresh. And I'm excited to, dive into whoever this new general manager is, and hopefully he can restabilize this once proud franchise.
Nick, thank you so much for coming on here tonight, man. I truly appreciate it. And of course, going into overtime with us as well. We appreciate that, and we hope to see you soon back here with us. It should be a ton of fun once again.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for having me. Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick.
Appreciate it. So let's keep on moving forward here. And, thank you very much, DeLuca, for coming in clutch on that one. All good stuff here for us here on the podcast. But there are so many games that are going to be happening starting on Saturday. And the reason why I say so many is because we've got 2 more games that we are normally used to seeing. There's now 6 games. And normally you had the 1 and 2 seed be on a bye. Now you only have the 1 seed in each respective conference on a bye. And I want to start with the first game of the weekend, which is Las Vegas and Cincinnati. That is the first game that I want to start with. And I want to start with Ian Schreier here. And the reason why is because we were looking to get actually a Bengals writer. We unfortunately were unable to accomplish that feat. But Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, the list goes on. We remember when the Bengals made a pick for Jamar Chase, and they were ridiculed for it, like New York media ridiculed. And the Cincinnati media went all over the Bengals organization, and he made every single one of them pay with a couple of weeks ago when he had a 255-yard receiving day, which essentially broke the rookie receiving record in a single game. Ian, what did you see from this Bengals team this year? And also a little preview of this one as well.
Yeah, with respect to Cincinnati, and we touched on it last week as well, Joey, is that we also can't understate the fact that Joe Burrow suffered, and I mentioned it last week again, suffered a gruesome injury last season. I mean, there were many that weren't sure he was going to come back 100% this year, even after drafting Jamar Chase. I mean, the big concern and why they were ridiculed so badly for their drafting of Jamar Chase was because their offensive line was so bad. Bobby Hart, yes, that the same New York Giants right tackle legend, Bobby Hart, was their starting right tackle coming into the season. Yes, the same man who said, "I am the best right tackle in football."
No, that's Eric Flowers, but go ahead.
No, that's left tackle. Bobby Hart was right tackle, and he was quoted as saying, "I am the best right tackle in football and should be paid that way." So, for Bobby, this was a team that, they should have been ridiculed, but we're all eating our words on the Cincinnati Bengals. They took advantage of a division that somehow ended up being very mediocre. I mean, you look at Cleveland, they underperformed. The Steelers aged, and it showed. And the Ravens, Lamar couldn't stay healthy, but also even when Lamar was healthy, they really weren't playing up to speed, especially when they lost a guy with the talent like J.K. Dobbins. So they really depended so much on Lamar's running game and his ability to just create so much. And remember, they also lost Gus Edwards too, so they were on a 3rd-string running back for much of the season. So it left the door open for Cincinnati. No one expected it. I'm expecting Cincinnati to win this game quite handily, to be honest with you. Cincinnati's been a real good team at home this year. You don't have to look too far to look only 2 weeks back to see their performance against the Kansas City Chiefs at home and to win that game. And granted, that was the game where Jamar Chase went off. But if you look back on this phenomenal last Sunday, Week 18 game between the Chargers and the Raiders, the game that was gonna finish in a tie, but didn't finish in a tie because Brandon Staley called timeout. So the Chargers are not in the playoffs. And I don't know if any of you watched the end of the game meeting at midfield between Austin Eckler and I forgot who it was from Vegas. And he basically, you could read his lips and saying, "You were going to kneel on that, right?" And they were like, "Yeah." And he just looked so disappointed because he realizes that his head coach calling timeout because he, to quote Herman Edwards here, he played to win the game. He cost them potentially a playoff spot because the Raiders were ready to take the Chargers with them to the playoffs and just sit on the ball in the final 40 seconds.
Which is insanity. When do you ever hear of taking a division rival with you to the playoffs?
But I mean, Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow, comparably are very similar. Both having great weapons in the running game. So when you look at Austin Eckler, you see Joe Mixon, and when you look at the receivers like Keenan Allen, and you think Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd. This is a game I'm expecting Cincinnati to win over Vegas. I mean, look, Darren Waller's been their best weapon Vegas all year, and I'm sure they're going to at least try to contain him. But and Hunter Renfrow. But I think this is a game that Cincinnati should have, and I'm expecting them to win comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, there is, and especially what we saw too with, I was about to say Oakland, with Las Vegas down the stretch. They were in the lead for much of the game. They obviously did not let up the lead, but the Chargers were right there the entire time. They just kept plugging away. And the
game was in Vegas.
Exactly. And that's another scary thought, is that this contest is going to be in Cincinnati with a rested Joe Burrow, a rested running game, and really just fully mentally rested as well. And I do not believe personally, and we're going to get to Mike Szabo next, this is not a Marvin Lewis coached team. This is a future coach of the year, Zach Taylor team.
Should be.
Right. Well, should be. Right. And again, that's just my personal opinion, is that this team will win, and they will win easily. Mike Szabo, what do you see with this first game of Super Wild Card Weekend?
I never like to say in playoff games anybody's going to win easy, because it seems like you never know what you're going to get from the Raiders. Derek Carr can play like holier than thou, like God just came down as a quarterback, or he could play absolutely terrible, and the team can be like playing like a 5-win team. Like, what are they doing here? But give credit to Rich Bisaccia and the job that he's done after what the Raiders have gone through this year, on the field, off the field, with the Gruden situation, the Ruggs situation, all of that involved, and he's able to come in and steer the ship and just squeak into the playoffs. I think it was the first time a team has made the playoffs since 1961 that had a midseason coaching change. So pretty impressive there, but I agree. I think the Bengals are going to win. I love what Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase have done. Like we said before, totally eating my words of them not picking an offensive lineman rather than, Jamar Chase. And they have the at-home field advantage. I think the Raiders kind of play on the road, as much as they have close games and thrillers at home and let teams back in at home.
They lost to the Giants, Szabo. They lost to the Giants in MetLife.
So they haven't been great on the road. So I think that factors into it. So I think the Bengals will win.
Yeah. So Mike, I think you're right. I'm taking the Bengals as well. I don't think the Raiders have too much of a chance here. And Mike, it's interesting you bring up that draft pick. You say it was a bold pick for the Bengals to go with Jamar Chase, go with the star player, even though they had a horrid offensive line. It's almost like taking the star player sometimes will pay off in the end, even though your offensive line was horrific. But you know what? Sometimes taking the gamble on the star player will work out, especially when there could be some chemistry there with the quarterback and all the other situations. Sometimes it just works.
When it's only worked out for 1 year, but please do go on.
Yeah, I will go on. Nonetheless, I've got the Bengals winning this game. I think they're probably going to cover that spread too. I believe it's 6 points right now. So I have them. I have the Bengals. I'm taking them to win this game. I don't really see the Raiders squeaked into the playoffs because, it was a wild game against the Chargers. It was a great game nonetheless. Very exciting, right down to the buzzer of overtime, no less. And they earned it. They earned their spot. There's no question about it. But it's a short-lived spot. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, these guys are going to carry them right into the next round of the AFC playoff picture.
So just before we move on, because we, again, intentionally did that so DeLuca can segue us into the next game. But with that being said, though, looking at the road record for the Las Vegas Raiders, at home they're 5-4, and on the road they're 5-3. really good, though, on the road, if you think about it, because, again, you look at some of these other teams, like, for instance, a team in Pittsburgh. They're 6-2-1 at home, 3-5 on the road. We'll get to that shortly. But then a team like the Colts, who did not make the playoffs, which we'll get to later on in the show, they're 4-5 at home, 5-3 on the road. This is something else too, is that I also think that New York Giants legends B.J. Hill and Eli Apple will be obtaining their first victory in the playoffs as well. So that'll be pretty cool to see. Another stat, too, the Bengals have averaged a grand total of 27.1 points per game this season, their most in a single season since averaging 28 back in 1988 when they went to the Super Bowl, but they lost to San Francisco, but they did win the AFC Central at the time. Something else, too, which is pretty cool, is that they're going to be going up against history. And we brought up about the history with the Cincinnati Bengals in the first round of the playoffs. We do know that in the time that Marvin Lewis was the head coach, there was not a single playoff victory for him. He'd make it there, but he could never move forward. We saw it with Carson Palmer.
Couldn't beat the Jets.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's true. Exactly right. We saw it with Carson Palmer. We saw it with Andy Dalton. Could not get done. And all time in the wild card round, they are 1-8. They've lost 7 straight. And the only other team to be worse are the Detroit Lions, who are 0-9 in wild card games. So let's keep on moving forward here, and let's look into the next game, which is in Western New York, the only team that does play in New York, mind you. New England and Buffalo. That is another good game, 8:15 on Saturday night. Should be tons of fun. Let us go with Mike Szabo this time around. Let's see what we've got here.
I think this is one of the tougher games to pick. I think it being in Buffalo helps a bit. I don't know what the weather's going to be like. I know we're supposed to get snow this weekend, but I don't know if it's going to hit Buffalo. But so everybody's throwing out the cold weather numbers and all that sort of stuff. But you just feel the Bills need this win. They need to show progression. Really, this is a team that Josh Allen is a MVP, borderline MVP kind of caliber quarterback and talent. This is a team in the ascendancy and whatnot. We've talked about this team the last couple of years. Oh, now you're starting to get on that like midway portion where, you're still in ascendancy, but, it's kind of time to start, not being in the ascendancy and start actually doing something. And they really need this game because I remember this was a point brought up. I was listening to one of the TV shows or whatnot. If they can't beat the Patriots now, when are they going to? This Patriots team is probably, with Belichick in them, it's probably only get better. Is only going to get better as they surround more offensive talent around Mac Jones, and Jones continues to develop. So if you still can't beat them after Tom Brady is gone and a rookie Mac Jones at home, when are you going to beat them? So I'm taking the Bills in this game. I think they really need it. I think Josh Allen is going to show up, and they win this game by like 10, 15 points.
See, that's pretty good. And you know what? You brought up that point of when could the Bills beat the Patriots because they are on the rise. And I know Ian is definitely saying to himself, yes, we know Joe continued to say this over and over again. All they needed was a quick retool. Yes, yes, yes. But I wasn't even going there. I don't want to say that Sean McDermott has to kick the Patriots while they're down because they're not down. They're slowly getting up, if you will. And that's the part where I want to say where, yes, they are retooling, but now is the time where you have to beat them because exactly what Mike said, if you can't beat them, when are you going to? Because they are just getting better and better and better. This is Buffalo's time to shine. And this is, I think, a make it or break it game for a lot of the roster, with the exception of Josh Allen, of course. Ian Schreier, yours.
Yeah, for me, with regards, it's a little different with Buffalo this year, strictly because we saw where they stood in the playoffs last year and how far they got with regards to losing to Kansas City in the AFC Championship. Now, granted, this year for Buffalo did not have the same to it as it did last year. I thought this year, the league kind of figured out Josh Allen a little bit. But also to a certain extent, I mean, something that Bill Belichick has just gained such notoriety for doing over the course of his Hall of Fame career has been that he has the ability to neutralize the opposition's best player. I mean, as seen, I believe they had lost to the Patriots had beaten the Bills 14-10 in their first meeting of the regular season. But when you actually look at coming into this meeting between the Bills and the Patriots in the playoffs, where it is in Buffalo, over their last, I believe the Patriots have now lost 3 of their last 4. Their only win was that 50-10 thrashing of the Jaguars. They've allowed close to 30 points, or just probably more than 30 points a game. While the Buffalo Bills during their 4-game winning streak are averaging 30-something points a game and allowing less than 20. So it seems like, and we've seen it over the last few weeks, where the Bills are just hitting their stride at exactly the right time. And for me, I think that's the difference maker in this game. Obviously, it's hard to go against New England, but you have a rookie quarterback who has never played a playoff game against a quarterback who last year went to the AFC Championship game. And to me, I think between that and the fact that the Bills are definitely getting hot at the right time is the difference maker. So I'm on the Buffalo train on Saturday for sure.
And before we get to DeLuca, just another stat here. Rookie quarterbacks are 2-8 as starters in the postseason since 2010, and both rookie wins were against other rookie starting QBs. That is not the case in this one. So again, they're going against history here. With the New England Patriots. DeLuca, finish us off.
Yeah, this is a tough game to pick. I mean, you got a division rival game in the first round of the playoffs. You kind of hope those things are safe for a little later. But I mean, I'm trying to think here because I'm trying not to do it. But it's, thinking about this game, I'm gonna be different here. I'm gonna say New England's gonna pull this one off. I think they're gonna pull off the upset. So I think
they have the tools. They have the tools to do it.
They do. I think Mac Jones could very well be in for a wake up call in this game.
I mean, I don't know how many more wake-up calls he can have. I mean, Rob, he really has not played well in a few weeks.
At the same time, the Patriots already won in Buffalo this season, so I think it's a toss-up because it's hard to win against a division opponent twice. It's certainly hard to do it twice in the same building when you have to play them a third time. And no, I'm gonna stick to my guns here. I think I'm gonna take the New England Patriots in the upset. So very close game. And Joey, the AFC is starting to bore me. Please move on to the NFC.
Bill Belichick is 3-7 as head coach in the postseason against teams that beat him throughout the year. They've lost 5 straight. This is something else, too, that I'm going to tell you right now is, and like I just said earlier, is that Buffalo has to have this game. If they don't have this game, they may not have another home playoff game for years on end. We remember at the peak of the pandemic, ladies and gentlemen, that Buffalo was one of the first teams to actually allow fans back into the building. And we also have to remember, too, that is not the reason why I said that. The reason why I said that is because that was, I believe, their first playoff game in, I want to say, 20 years. I believe, Ian, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was like 15 or 20 years, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number.
Since the Jim Kelly era. So with that being said, this is monumental for them. They might not get another. And especially with the Patriots on the rise. Yes, they have hit a good, they have gotten hot at the right time, but this is the time that you have no choice but to move forward in. And if you cannot move forward in, Josh Allen has to have his best game of his career. And yes, we'll say that after every single round that, after he wins.
It's what he has to do, Joey. It's that simple.
No doubt.
It really is. And I'm just, there's something about the poor city of Buffalo never having the success that they should have, even in years they're supposed to be really good, and it just falls short. I feel like I feel like they're just cursed.
Well-
And they've been cursed for decades.
Well,
They've been cursed for the longest
usually
time.
it's difficult. Usually it's difficult to beat a team like 3 times in a row, but that's not the case here. I mean, Buffalo and New England split their season series.
Right, they split the series.
And granted, look, I mean, we saw what happened with New England in the playoffs a couple of years ago in Brady's last season. We knew the dynasty was on its way out the door. They didn't make the playoffs last year. They're back this year. And I think they're riding. I mean, I really do believe that they are struggling into the playoffs. I mean, they are riding the coattails off of a strong start by Mac Jones. Granted, Damian Harris, very, very good year. But I think, one thing that I guess if you want to look at, Bill Belichick neutralizing the opposition's best player, I mean, Buffalo beat New England a few weeks ago with Isaiah McKenzie. I mean, I believe he had like 125 yards receiving and a touchdown. I mean, I think this game's in Buffalo. It's hard enough to win there in the regular season. I can only imagine what that place is going to be like in the playoffs. And like I said, New England's going in there really struggling. And I think this is going to be I mean, listen, I'm not saying you're wrong, DeLuca, in your prediction about New England, but I mean, this is.
Oh no! Like I said, it's going to be a tight game. It really could go either way. I just felt like being different because
I mean,
we all picked the Bengals, and then the three of you took the Bills. We can't all be in sync on every game.
No, I'm not saying that. But by tight, you thinking like it'll be like a touchdown, or are you thinking like it's 10+?
Oh no, not even close to 10+. This might be less than a touchdown. We might be talking
about.
Yeah,
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure about that.
This is going to be a low-scoring game as well.
I think it might. I'm not so sure about even low scoring. You know what?
It's all about the weather.
2 top 5 defenses going head to head.
Yeah, but
if Mike is right and the snow hits Buffalo, then
that's different. That's different. Weather plays a different factor. But say even if they're playing in 5-degree weather where New England and Buffalo are so comfortable playing to begin with.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can't put even the weather into it. You can't even put weather as a factor here because you have to think about it. Foxborough is a tiny bit southeast of Buffalo, so they don't get as much snow. Big deal. So what? So listen, this New England team, they have to okay. 2 top 5 defenses are going head to head here. Yes, they do not have Tre'Davious White. We have to realize that as well. Okay, that's someone else that they don't have. One of the best corners for the Buffalo Bills. He's not there. He tore his ACL a few weeks ago, about a couple of months ago, I believe. Yeah. We got a chance to see that happen, and now you're going to see this. Exactly what Ian said. The running too. It's gonna be a bloodbath in my opinion.
I agree.
But
I think it's 10+.
But a low scoring bloodbath. There will be. That's where I'm gonna leave it off. It's gonna be a low scoring pound for pound contest, and I think that it's not going to be what we got a chance to see back on Christmas Day. 33-21 in favor of the Bills. Not happening in this one. Guys, let's keep moving forward here. We're not going to touch on the Philadelphia Eagles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because we are going to be having on Evan Winter. That will be on an instant reaction series. That'll be episode number 4 of Instant Reaction. He will be on with us then. So we will go right into the next game on the docket, which is going to be San Francisco and Dallas Sunday at 4:30 Eastern time. So let's get things started here. Ian Schreier.
Joey, let's do that. Why don't we at least just give our predictions? Quick round table predictions on the game.
All right, well, let's save the best for last then. And that would be the Philadelphia Eagles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Save it for last. So thank you for that segue, DeLuca. That's a great job. Ian Schreier, San Francisco and Dallas.
Yeah, I think this is the most intriguing game of the entire weekend. I think this is a game where, on paper, Dallas is home. That this is a game where Dallas, even as of a few weeks ago, probably would have, I don't want to call it a runaway, but probably would have come away comfortably. But look, I mean, we saw how the Niners played in Week 18. We know that this is a team that is only a couple of years removed from being in the Super Bowl. Deebo Samuel is arguably top 2, top 3. I mean, I know that's hard with names like Justin Jefferson and Devontae Adams. But I mean, he's earned that type of recognition in the league this year. And I think this is the one instance where there is an opportunity for upset.
How about Jawan Jennings, Ian? He's another one.
Yeah. It's and you can't leave out obviously George Kittle, and they've endured a lot of adversity over the last 12 months. The San Francisco 49ers, like when you go back to even last season when they lost Eric Armstead and they lost Joey Bosa and they were losing Javon Kinlaw and they were losing all these key players to their defense and really couldn't stop anybody. But this is a team that clearly and here's my thing with this game. I'm really torn with it, and I'm not sure which way to go. I'm definitely leaning Dallas because they're home. They're home. I really like just if they're healthy. I don't think there are many teams in terms of a receiving corps that can really hold with guys like Gallup, and I believe Gallup's out, right? Is Gallup done for the year?
I believe yes. Yes, he is. He tore his ACL on that touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, Dak Prescott is easily a comeback player of the year candidate. I mean, the top two receivers of what's that?
The comeback. Well, actually, no candidate because Joe Burrow has that. Go ahead.
Yeah. But you look at the receivers with CD and Coop and you look at obviously having Zeke in the backfield and just them playing at home. I mean, they're also a different team at home than they are on the road as well. I mean, another instance of home field advantage when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, that's why I'm leaning Dallas. It's hard, but just because like I still continue not to put a lot of stake in the LA Rams. I do think that it's a upset candidate, but I'm gonna lean Dallas here just strictly off the home field.
Ian, is it a home game? Do you remember what happened last time, right?
Yeah.
Look at that. This is what happened last time. That's Dallas. That is Dallas. That is Jerry World.
Yeah.
So is it really a home game when the Niners come into town? It's
the playoffs, DeLuca. I mean, when was that picture from that game? How many years ago now?
I mean, just
on the scorebug. I mean, I'm only basing on the scorebug alone. It's definitely at least a few years.
San Francisco was in Dallas.
Yeah,
that's the last time they were there. That's just what happened last time. So
yeah.
It won't happen again.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco has a great travel. There's no doubt about it. They travel everywhere, but I have to lean Dallas here just strictly. I mean, you want to sit here and quote the fact that the Niners travel well. I mean, the Cowboys are just a good team at home, and I think that's why. I mean, the Niners have been 500. I mean, they finished the year 10-7, but they were, a play away. I mean, if they don't get that touchdown to end right at the end of the game,
you're right. I don't know how much stock you can put into San Francisco.
Listen, I'm not high on either of these teams. That's why I consider it to be an upset candidate game. But I'm leaning, and this is a very soft lean toward Dallas.
Before we get to DeLuca and to Mike, I just want to say my quick prediction here. Not even a prediction, just the plain stats. San Francisco is 4-1 in their last 5. At home, they're 4-4. On the road, they're 6-3, and they're 10-7. This is the swan song goodbye of Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco. Trey Lance will be the starter next year. San Francisco upsets Dallas. It's happening. DeLuca, go ahead.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of things Ian's right about. This is probably going to be an even closer game than New England Buffalo.
There's no doubt.
Probably going to be even
closest to the weekend. No doubt.
This is a crazy game. I'm with Ian as well. I am not sold on either of these teams really. I don't think. Obviously, one of them has to win. One of them's going to the second round. They'll be right there on the golf course the following week because they're not going to win. They're not going to win the next round game. So, nonetheless, I think that while these games are going to be particularly close, that like Joey said, Josh Allen has to have a career game. I think Dak Prescott has to do the same. Otherwise, the Dallas Cowboys are not going to win this game because because of the Niners' ability to travel, it essentially almost negates their home field advantage. As Ian said, it is important to play on your home field advantage.
It's one game.
The ins and outs of your field is very important.
I don't buy that. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you here, but I just need to interject here with. I just need to interject here with this is that what the image that we saw, I think, is definitely it shows that Niners fans travel, okay? But if they don't have what we got a chance to see here on this graphic, where this team, where they were leading 13-3 in the first quarter inside Jerry World, I think the bottom line here is that, yes, and if I'm not mistaken, I think San Francisco did end up winning that game.
Yes.
The bottom line here, though, is that was a Dallas team years ago.
Yeah.
Right. It's not now.
Tony Romo was still playing, and Dak Prescott wasn't, just by looking at that score bug. That was around 2016-17.
Right.
So,
that's the last time San Francisco would have been in Dallas.
Right. Exactly.
Was that the San Francisco Dallas season opener game that they won like 37-3 back then?
By looking
that might be.
at
Yeah.
that might just be. That was a blowout game. That was like a season
right,
opener
because it turned
Right.
into a Niners home game. There were no Dallas fans there.
Right.
So
right. Okay. So and just my last thing before when to get to you here is I think that, again, you also brought up the fact that regardless of who wins the next week, both teams are going to be on the golf course the following week. I don't think it's that simple. I think if San Francisco can win, and they are the true road warriors of the entire league. They're 6-3. They have the best
on the road
record of any playoff team. This team is serious about moving forward and getting back to the Super Bowl, what we got to see in 2020.
Right, but
Continue.
If you're San Francisco, you win. You're taking a trip to Green Bay. Have fun. Good luck with that. That is if, again, and a small if, we know that it's going to happen. But the only way that doesn't happen is if the Eagles win. Go ahead. Right. Yeah, to go on there. But yeah, so I think that this game's going to be tight. It's a strange game, but I'm going to take the Niners in an upset. I think, like as you said, Joey, this is essentially Jimmy G's last dance in San Francisco. So I think he's going to want to go out on a high note. I know San Francisco fans are done with Jimmy G being their quarterback. So it's almost like it feels like they're indifferent on if they win this game or not, because it's that much closer to Jimmy G no longer being there anymore. So I do think the Niners are going to show the fight. Also, being a Giants fan, it's physically hard for me to say Dallas will win the game, but I do strongly believe that while it'll be close, I think San Francisco can edge it out. There's no reason to say Dallas won't win the game. They're at their stadium. They're a very talented team. They're the best team in the NFC East by a long shot, and that they earned this spot that they got here. But San Francisco, that road record is important to note. They are extremely, extremely good at keeping home fans quiet and sending them home crying. And I think that's what we're going to see here on Sunday.
If San Francisco comes out and wins, there will definitely be some shuffling around the entire league. Also, we also have to look at exactly what DeLuca said. If San Francisco wins, the chances of them going to Green Bay are pretty good. Can they play in the rough elements of Lambeau Field? I don't believe so. But they will put up a fight regardless, because that defense has really woken up in previous weeks. In addition to their offense as well, they have, in their last 5 games, they've put up 25 points a game, 400 yards per game. They have only allowed a grand total, which is in the top 5 in the league, 17.4 points per game and 287 total yards per game allowed. Mike Szabo, finish us off with this contest.
So the first thought I had of this game is it's kind of eerie having this matchup, honestly, because right when John Madden died, because this was 49ers, Cowboys, big games that you could think about in John Madden's heyday as a broadcaster, and those classic 80, 90s Steve Young, Troy Aikman battles, 49ers, Cowboys.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of weird. Like on the end, like right when he's died this year, you got 49ers and Cowboys again. That's the first thought when I saw this matchup being set pop up into my mind. But I think San Francisco's coming we always talk about how is it, how do you come into a postseason? You want to come in hot. Does it really matter how you come in and whatnot? San Francisco's coming in really good. Like you said, 4-1 in the last 5 games. They put on an absolute clinic in the second half defensively against the Rams. You guys spoke about how the fans travel. I mean, they made that Week 18 game essentially a 49ers home game in SoFi Stadium.
Yeah.
I think Dallas on paper should be running away with this game, but we say that about Dallas for the last 2 years now, that they should be a lot better than they are. I get there at home. I think I just see another Cowboys letdown here. I like San Francisco. They are the road warriors, not just this season, but under Shanahan and in the playoffs. And listen, I think Green Bay should be a little worried about the possibility of them coming to Lambeau because San Francisco smacked them last time the 49ers came to Lambeau. I know that was a different season, different circumstances and whatnot, but I think they're a team that can find lightning in a bottle. They're well coached. They relatively have some of their key players back to health. The defense there, I think, can get to Dak Prescott. Whether it's sacking him or forcing him into some bad throws. Jimmy G makes the proper throws. George Kittle maybe goes off. And I think they pull off the upset. I'm taking the 49ers.
Yeah, and something else too here that I mixed my words up here. San Francisco's road record is one of the best, not the best. Of course, the Arizona Cardinals have an 8-1 record on the road. We brought that up in the last game, or in our last episode regarding Kyler Murray and his immaculate road record, which brings us into the next game, which is not Super Wild Card Monday, but it is the final game on that Sunday, which is the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Kansas City Chiefs. A game that really, in my eyes, is not really one that I don't think will be as competitive as, it's going to be just I don't want to call it a snoozer. The only reason why I would watch that, it's football, whatever, but it's also the last dance for Ben Roethlisberger. And yes, even though DeLuca did say about the last dance with Jimmy G, that's
only in San Francisco. Yeah,
right, exactly. And the reason why this for Jimmy G and Jimmy Garoppolo, the fact is that this is more of a
this is a Hall of Famer saying goodbye.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So he's not, Ben Roethlisberger, a Hall of Famer. He played his last game on Heinz Field 2 weeks ago and got the big upset victory against the Baltimore Ravens. He was also quoted this past week and said, "We have no chance at beating Kansas City." I don't know if he was serious about it. I'm going to say he was because, again, you have no pressure. You weren't supposed to make the playoffs. What is the difference? He's going out on top regardless. There were also some sightings of Juju Smith-Schuster potentially making his return. He returned to practice as well. So start off this time with Rob DeLuca here. Pittsburgh, KC. KC has been heating up as of late. What do you see with this game?
Yeah, I don't see a whole lot here. It's going to be a wash real quick. This game's at Arrowhead, Kansas City. Beautiful stadium, a lot of fans, loyal fans. They're going to be very loud. I think this game's going to be over quick. I have the Kansas City Chiefs in a blowout. This is more about saying goodbye to Ben Roethlisberger, and I think it's a legendary career. Hall of Famer. The three big names of the 2004 NFL draft. The 3 big quarterback names. They're all going to the Hall of Fame. All for their different reasons. They're all going to be there. They should all be there on the first ballot. It may not happen that way, but it's the way it should go. And
that's your bias speaking.
It's funny. It's funny. Philip Rivers he thinks Philip Rivers is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, legendary San Diego Chargers.
Yeah, just look. To be fair, just because he had more kids than playoff wins doesn't mean his regular season stats weren't the best of the 3. I mean, in terms of regular season stats, Rivers technically had the best. I don't know how. It's hard to believe you couldn't finish with the teams he was given. It's hard to believe the Chargers couldn't finish.
That is true. Legendary Indianapolis Colts quarterback Phillip Rivers, mind
That's
you.
true. Yeah, that's true. Nonetheless, but yeah, I mean, look, Ben Roethlisberger's going to the Hall of Fame. It's going to be nice to see. It'll be interesting to see how he plays in this what is basically a send off here, because look, it's not going to be close. Kansas City's going to win this pretty comfortably, and there's really not much more you can say about it. It's going to be the Chiefs in a blowout, moving on, and awaiting however the AFC playoff picture really shakes up. There's no telling who their opponent will be.
Patrick Mahomes is 6-0 in the postseason against QBs not named Tom Brady. He's 0-2 against Tom Brady. Kansas City took down the Pittsburgh Steelers on Christmas Day about a couple of weeks ago by a score of 36-10. That was a snoozer after dinner that we all got to witness. Ian Schreier, Pittsburgh and KC. Is there any positives here aside from TJ Watt and the record of Michael Strahan's single season sack record?
No, I mean, I think it's pretty cut and dry. I know there's I've read a couple of things that have said like this is the way that the Steelers, like the game that we all want to see. We want to see Ben Roethlisberger play one more game in addition to the Kansas City game. Here's why the Steelers could beat the Chiefs, and you want to hold out hope for that. Excuse me, and hope that we all can see an upset in Arrowhead by Pittsburgh on Sunday, but Sunday night specifically. But no, I don't see it happening. I think this was a game, I believe, like you said, what was it, 31-10 or 38-10?
36-10 on Christmas.
36-10, yeah. So I mean, I'm not expecting too much there. The Steelers have. I'm just kind of happy for Ben that he's going to get to go out the right way. I guess that's the best way to describe it. Just strictly because the Steelers were very underwhelming. I thought, the one thing I will give the Steelers for credit, and if you want to kind of build on a positive, even though I know Mike Zaba will sit there and harp on the fact that they lost, that they tied the Lions, but is that for the second half of the year and better part of the season, they were still competitive, even with Ben's injuries and Juju Smith-Schuster being out the whole year, and TJ Watt was a great story, but this is a game, like I said, we all want to see something different. We want to see a competitive game, but obviously this is the Sunday night game because nothing Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth love more than to see Patrick Mahomes, or say that for any broadcast team. And I'm going to try and keep it short and sweet there, Kansas City.
And that's another thing too. Before we get to Mike, this is another cool note as well. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 8-0-1 this season when allowing fewer than 24 points. I do not expect that to happen. And they are 1-7 when allowing 24 plus. Also, Patrick Mahomes, he has 15 touchdowns, no interceptions in 6 career home playoff starts. The best postseason pass touchdown interception ratio at home in NFL history. And this is something else, too. It should be fun to see the third best offense in the entire NFL go up against the 24th ranked defense in the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it's not going to be ideal. But what I can see, though, is that I do believe that the Steelers will put up double-digit points because the Kansas City defense is just as Nick Filato did use earlier, putrid.
Oh yeah.
Kansas City's defense is really atrocious, led by New York Giants legend Steve Spagnuolo. But that, of course, just had to be put in there. And also their running game too for Pittsburgh is 29th in the league as well. So they got to get that running game going. And, that front four of Kansas City is also pretty good, led by Frank Clark, Chris Jones, those guys as well. Mike Zabo, conclude us with Pittsburgh and Kansas City.
Hey, Spags won a Super Bowl. And
yeah. Keep going.
Yeah, Spags actually has a couple of rings. So
Come on.
I don't know,
That's okay.
I'm going with the Chiefs, but something creeps me out about this game in the way, like how the Steelers have been like, hey, we're here. Ben's like, hey, we'll see what happens. It's good to be here. We'll see. We know we're up against the odds, but we'll see. Something creeps me out when teams act like that, like it's all a ruse and they have something up their sleeve. But I don't.
I get what you're saying. I get what Mike's saying.
It's really
I really don't think
weird.
I don't think that's the case here, though. I really truly believe that they believe that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, but it's like then why? It's like why would you say that then? Like like it just feels weird when teams do that or people say that like, oh yeah, we're done before it all starts. But either way, it doesn't change my mind. The Chiefs are going to win this game big time. They'll move along fairly easily.
The Arizona Cardinals and the Los Angeles Rams, ladies and gentlemen, round out Super Wildcard Weekend on the first ever Monday night playoff game. That one will be at 8:15 Eastern Time on Martin Luther King Day, live on Rob DeLuca's Employers Network, ABC. So it should be a ton of fun because the Arizona Cardinals, as we alluded to earlier, they are 8-1 on the road, and the LA Rams, they play very well at home. And they're going to be up against a tough Arizona team that makes this game kind of intriguing for me anyway, just because, as we brought up earlier, Kyler Murray is better on the road than he is in his own building. I see Ian Schreier with a couple of head nods there as I was saying it. So you know what, sir? You get the official, head cap, if you will, to start us off.
Well, thank you for the honors there, Joe.
Oh, you're welcome.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. It's the Burger King crown. Sorry, that's what
is it my birthday yet?
No, not yet.
Not yet. This is a game I could see going one of two ways. Either this is the game that everybody's waiting for to be the offensive shootout that I believe we were a couple of years removed from with the Rams down in Mexico.
Yep.
That 48-45. No, that game wasn't meant. That game was in LA. But that game, or it's going to be a game where Matthew Stafford's going to have another game like he's had recently where he throws 3 picks and the Rams really aren't going to be in it. I only see it one way or the other. We've already spoken about Kyler Murray's excellent record on the road. Granted, this will be Kyler Murray's first ever. It is his first ever playoff start, I believe, correct?
I think so.
Yeah. But I'm really not loving the Rams this year. I think they've been vastly underwhelming, and then that's being kind. I really thought Stafford was going to make the most of his opportunity with the Rams. And granted, they won the division. Like how much? Why am I not giving them enough credit? Because he hasn't played well. He really hasn't. Look, I mean, when you've got a defense now that encompasses Aaron Donald and Von Miller and Jalen Ramsey, and the list goes on, and you have wide receivers like Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham Jr. and Matthew Stafford as their quarterback. It's really difficult to see why how the Rams aren't the number 1 seed overall in the NFC, number 1, which is what we all alluded to at the start of the season, and 2, why Stafford is struggling so much. I mean I don't have the stats in front of me, but I mean the number of interceptions he's thrown in crucial spots, especially in the red zone. That's definitely a concerning piece to it. I mean, the Cardinals have an all-pro safety back there in Budda Baker. That's a piece of it. Look, you got to give a lot of credit to the Arizona Cardinals and AJ Green for stepping up the way he has in D Hop's absence. I'm actually going with the Cardinals here.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't like what the Rams are selling lately. I really don't. I don't like the attitude of that team. I'm not saying it's because Odell's there, but I just don't like where that team is at, considering the talent that they have on that field. This is a team that should have been running away with the NFC West, and the NFC West was decided on the last day of the season. Look, I mean the Cardinals definitely overperformed, but I'm not sold on Stafford right now whatsoever. So yeah, I'm gonna back Kyler Murray and his road record and take Arizona here.
Go ahead, DeLuca. I see you want to counter.
Yeah, no, Ian, we discussed this 19 weeks. We discussed this 19 weeks ago. The NFC West was always supposed to be the most competitive division. It was supposed to come down to the last day, and it did. That's exactly the way all 3 of us discussed it going, and lo and behold, we were right. That's just how we discussed it. It came down to the last day, and the Rams ended up taking it, as I believe all 3 of us ended up predicting anyway. So all 4 of us, I believe Mike Zaba was with us as well for the NFC West special. So there's that as well. So I'm not saying I'm sold on the Rams. I think you're right in that aspect. There's something missing there with Matt Stafford and why he's not playing as well as he should be. There's absolutely something missing there. But for me, the Rams defense is too good. Kyler Murray in his first playoff game, I think he's going to feel that pressure a little bit. And it's not a home game. Granted, Arizona's not very far away from Los Angeles. SoFi Stadium is a major tourist attraction that brings in a lot of road fans. So
I love DeLuca in his home, and every game he's had a home field argument for it.
You gotta have it in SoFi Stadium.
It matters. It matters in the playoffs, and SoFi Stadium is the furthest thing from a home field advantage to anybody. So
any place in Los Angeles is the furthest. Any place in Los Angeles when it comes to football.
Exactly, they're all tourist attractions. It doesn't work out well. So, but here's the thing. As you mentioned, it would have to be the AJ Green show because, as it has now been reported, DeAndre Hopkins is in fact out for Monday night's game. He will not be there. So that's a big weapon of Kyler Murray's that he does not have against a stellar defense. So he's going to have to look to AJ Green a lot. And, does AJ Green still have the step to handle this playoff atmosphere, the playoff situations against probably the best defense, one of the best defenses in football.
Yeah, but you also have to look at Christian Kirk too. He's not.
I'm not saying you don't look to him, but
my fantasy guy,
you gotta heavily rely on AJ
him
Green
too.
Here. But for me, I kind of had the Rams, even if DeAndre Hopkins was somehow going to get into this game. Now that he's not playing, I definitely have the Rams. I'm going to take the Rams here to win this game at home, and it'll be it's going to be an interesting game because, look, that's just how division rival games go. You can't ever count anyone out, ever. But for me, it's got to be the Rams.
Mike, I want to get to you in a second, but I just need to counter here with DeLuca. So you did say just before that the Rams defense is really good. I'm sorry, they're not. And not only are they not that good either, in addition to Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald, you've got a Von Miller who really has not gotten up to speed yet out in Los Angeles yet. That is another problem as well.
Well,
You've got these big names there in LA that are not contributing on the defensive side of the ball. But then you also have to look at the Arizona side of things as well.
But do you know what Von Miller knows how to do, Joey? Play in a big game.
Yes, okay, that's fine. But do the other 10 guys around him know how to play in a big game? I love what Ian said. I love what Ian said here. And I love the fact where he said that he does not love what the Rams are selling. Well, I have to tell you this, Ian, is that you are 100% right. You know why? Because the attitude and the ego that this Rams team is really walking around with just because, who is supposed to be hosting the Super Bowl this year? SoFi Stadium, Los Angeles, home of the Rams and the Chargers. So that would be the second team in as many years to host a potential Super Bowl. This Rams team will not be hosting the Super Bowl. I can tell you that right now. And that's something else too.
Well, technically they still are. They just may not be there.
That's fair. Okay, but I'm saying that the Rams will not be hosting the Super Bowl is what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying.
You get what I'm saying. The Rams.
I had to mess with you because that's just this show.
The Arizona Cardinals are 4-6 after starting 7-0. The Rams will win a close one, but it will not be fun. I don't know what's going on with Matthew Stafford, but there is a positive. Cam Akers is back. His production and his workload will be increasing, and that's going to be definitely some work for Chandler Jones on the other side of the ball, as well as Jordan Hicks.
That's the NFC West in a nutshell, Joey. I like how you said it's not going to be fun. Because that is NFC West football. That's NFC West football.
Ground and pound is
the last few years of NFC West football. That is one of the most boring divisions that play football in the National Football League.
Not only that too. This is what we're going to see on one side of the ball. We're going to see Matthew Stafford to Cooper Kupp and to OBJ. Done. We're also then going to see on the other side of the ball, Kyler Murray handed off to James Conner in that ground and pound, and Aaron Donald is going to have a day. He's going to be exhausted come the end of the day, as well as Chase Edmonds as well, who was hurt earlier in the season. He's now back. Mike Szabo, go ahead.
I think this game is going to be more of a shootout. You just look at the two regular season meetings between the two teams, and just as like a motivation aspect or something like that, I get Arizona's road record and whatnot. They beat the Rams at home this season. I don't know if the Rams would be motivated to see that twice. I don't know if what's a record on that or anything like that of teams being able to go on the road and beat the opponent twice in their same building. If they do meet up in a regular season and a playoffs, but I just see a situation that the Rams wouldn't have that. I think also the absence of DeAndre Hopkins is huge. And sure, Arizona is able to work around that and play really well. I think you can get around an absence like that in the regular season and still be able to succeed. But when you get into the playoffs and you're talking about you need big performances, it's, winner go homes type situations. I think not having that sort of piece really kills you on your offense. You don't have a real game breaker. I get Christian Kirk and AJ Green are solid pieces. On the rushing side of things, James Conner and Chase Edmonds can provide something, but just having Hopkins there and that safety net, I think, is just a huge killer. That's why I give the Rams the advantage, and I think the Rams are going to win this game. I think it may come down to a touchdown or even a last-second field goal.
Well, this is actually the last point that I want to make up, and if anybody else has something else, please do not hesitate to interrupt. We also speak about the safety nets, Mike. You also speak about the tight end as well in Zach Ertz, and I'm not saying this biasly, but I think what we've gotten a chance to see is Kyler Murray with his two tight ends. The second name that I'm forgetting is in addition to Zach Ertz.
I think it's Dan Arnold. Yeah.
Yeah. The actor Dan Arnold. But
he's on Jacksonville.
Hold on one second. I'm trying to remember it off the top of my head. While also pulling it up here on my side as well. Is also Darrell Daniels as well. That's another one too. Darrell Daniels is another one that Kyler Murray has built some rapport with, in addition to Zach Ertz as well. So there's a little bit of hope there for Arizona, because the Rams have struggled against opposing tight ends. And very funny, they actually brought back a familiar name in retired safety Eric Weddle to help out in the backfield as well. And who knows? I don't know how rusty he's going to be. I would expect a lot. I would expect a ton of rust on him because he hasn't played in 2+ years. And he's been sitting on the couch with us for most of the pandemic as well. So I like I said, I still expect the Rams to come out on top, but it will be a small margin. It will be a shootout. I do believe that.
It's going to be like 36-33, something like that.
And like I said, Arizona's run game will be on the highlight reel. But in addition, Matthew Stafford's passing game has to be on the highlight reel. If not, Arizona takes this. But I say Matthew Stafford comes to ball. Cooper Kupp's triple crown continues. Let's continue moving forward here, and I do believe that
the last game, the round table.
Yeah, exactly, and that is it from what we've got here.
Just the quick round table game. You know?
Exactly. The last game, though, we did say we'd save the best for last, of course. Quick prediction, of course, Tampa Bay and Philadelphia. DeLuca.
Quick. Not going to analyze it. We're going to let you discuss it. I think you and Evan Winter should have a nice little friendly wager when you talk to him tomorrow. You guys should try to establish a fun little wager. You guys figure that out when you talk tomorrow.
Like Joey wearing a Bucks jersey or something.
Something fun. But yeah,
he might as well go find. He might as well go find a non-defunct Models and just go buy a Bucks jersey.
But yeah, Joey and Evan. Joey and Evan should have a little fun with it when they talk tomorrow. That's all I'm saying. I've got the Bucks in a close game. Tom Brady in the NFC East. He clearly has problems with the NFC East, so the Eagles will keep it close, but the Bucks will take it at home.
All right, Ian Schreier, what do you got in that contest?
I agree with Rob 100%. I think that game is going to be Tampa Bay, but it's also going to be very close. I believe the spread on that game is like 10 points or something like that.
Easy cover.
Yeah, I love the Eagles in terms of a cover, but I do think the Bucks are going to win, but close. I think that's going to be a game that's going to be a touchdown difference or less for most of the game. Mike
Szabo.
I think the Bucks are winning this handily. This is an Eagles team that scored 7 and lost to the Giants.
That's so true.
I mean, that's what this Eagles team is. They're inconsistent. They got potential to sometimes pull some wins off, hence why they're here. But I mean, they've been some ugly performances. I have the Bucs winning this one like 35-17 or something like that, 35-10.
Well, Mike, get off. No. I don't believe that will be the case. I think it's going to be an easy cover for sure, but I think it's going to be a touchdown. A touchdown is going to make the difference of this contest. You also look at what the Eagles have done this year. They're 0-6 against teams that have made the playoffs, and they are 9-2 against all other teams that have not made the playoffs. It's not a good year for the Eagles. They were not even supposed to have a winning record. They were supposed to have maybe 4 or 5 wins on the season, and Nick Sirianni completely turned it around, where at one point he had the lowest rush offense in the entire league. And then all of a sudden, now he's number 1 in the entire league. And you've got this 3-headed monster in Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell, with the exception, of course, of the former in Miles Sanders, who will not be playing. Buccaneers take this one by 7. I will definitely bring up to Evan Winter about a friendly wager, no doubt. Tom Brady, though, again, it's going to, and I think that you're going to notice something as well, where with no Chris Godwin in the slot either, Mike Evans is just, everyone's going to be throwing to him. He's going to be throwing to him the whole time. Darius Slay is going to have his work cut out for him, no doubt about it. Expect a ton of Rob Gronkowski as well. Eagles lose, by 7. On Sunday. Guys, let's keep on moving forward here and look towards our results from the pick'em pool this year. It was a tough last week, and the irony of the entire thing was that Tyler Adele did not make picks for a good 3 to 4 weeks, and his pick of the Detroit Lions was officially the clinching one to secure the victory for the Essential Wrestling Podcast crew. So you look here and you got a chance to see Rob DeLuca, who, in addition to myself, we both lost. Rob kept saying over and over again, "Oh, hop on my back. We're gonna go for the ride here. We're gonna do this." And all of a sudden,
Joey, I finished 12-6. You did ride my back for most of the season.
You gotta give credit to Casey Bryant on that Jacksonville pick, though.
I honestly loved that pick when Casey told us that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
I had a feeling the Jaguars were going to do that to the Colts.
I didn't, and you know what? And the crazy part is that I personally did not expect that. There's so much more NFL news to talk about, especially with Carson Wentz, of course. And Ian had brought up if the Indianapolis Colts were to make it, yes, I'd be drooling over it. No, that's not the case. I find it absolutely hysterical that they completely fell flat on their face, and Carson Wentz more specifically. And the best part too is that the Indianapolis Colts general manager came out publicly and said that we made the right choice at the time, and he flat out used those words almost. And for him to come out and say that he cannot confirm that Carson Wentz is their quarterback of the future. Well, that just puts, so I might have to be Kermit the Frog and sip the tea here. That's really funny because we also have the Eagles have their first round pick as well.
Joey, while we're still here on football and on the Survivor thing, we must remember the person whose back we really did ride most of the season, Ian Schreier. He finished 15-3.
Yeah.
An unbelievable season. And unfortunately, it wasn't enough to win the individual title. He's still tied. That's the problem here. So why don't we explain to our great listeners what Ian has to do?
Yeah, so it's very good. So now what will be, it's going to be Ian Schreier and John DeConnie in the final 2. It's going to be picks for the 2 of them. They get to choose, obviously, same exact rules apply. Once you make a pick in the Survivor pool from Wildcard Weekend, you cannot use them in the next round. Well, the whole thing, though, is that because both of them had a 15-3 record, the individual award cannot be distributed or awarded to either Ian Schreier or John DeConnie just yet. The team award has officially been won by by the Essential Wrestling Podcast. But of course, the individual award is still out for grabs. So Tyler Riddell also won the last place award. The team award went to EWP. And now the individual award could potentially be on this show for Ian or on the Central Wrestling Podcast for John DeConnie. Well, Ian, I have to ask you this question, is that, do you have your pick ready? And if you do, go ahead. If not, then you can say, we'll talk about it another time.
Yeah, I think I do. I think I do. It's funny because DeConnie and I feel like for the most part have played chalk all year. We really haven't gone outside the box. I think we've gone with the heavy favorite every time. And I don't think I'm going to take the heavy favorite here. I think we're gonna get this decided Super Wildcard Weekend, to be honest with you, or we're gonna extend another week, because I don't think I'm going with the team DeConnie's going with. I think DeConnie's going to take the safe route and try and go with KC and try to say, hey, we'll take it into divisional weekend. I'm going to hold off on KC in the hope that if he hits with KC and I hit with my team, I have KC for next week if Cincinnati beats Las Vegas. So that being said, I feel really comfortable in saying I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals.
Wow.
Super Wild Card Weekend. I think that's why I think this thing is probably going to get decided. I'm sure I'm taking the less sure of the two teams. So obviously I'm willing to concede here if I'm wrong, but I can't go another week potentially with a tie. I just can't do it. It's bad enough we finished in a tie because, in all honesty,
the suspense is eating you up inside, huh?
No, you know what? Neither of us would have been right. Neither of us would have been wrong if we would have gone with our initial expected picks, because DeConnie wanted to go with Cleveland. Cleveland won. And I was originally going to go with Washington, and Washington won. So we still would have been stuck in the same tie that we are currently sitting in. So I'm not going to play the safe route here. I'm going to take a team I think that's finally going to break this dreaded curse of not winning in the playoffs. Granted, you know what? Derek Carr is experienced, but I'm going to take the Bengals here. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe DeConnie does take Cincinnati, and we're talking about this again next week. But for now, I'm not going to play the safe route. I'm going to look towards potentially the following week. And
Ian wants to win, and he wants it now.
Yeah, I'm going to gamble a little bit here. Give me the Bengals at home.
Well, okay, and just to conclude our thought with this also is that the winner will be determined. Of course, there are 4 rounds. You've got the wild card, divisional, conference championship, as well as the Super Bowl. And if the moment that there is a 2-game differential, the winner will be awarded the trophy, of course, because there's only.
Whoa, wait a minute. I thought it was Survivor style, 1 week at a time.
No.
Ian was under the impression it was sudden death.
I'm completely confused by the rules then.
Well, you have to look at the email.
You're playing right through the Super Bowl.
You have to look through the email.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Clearly, I didn't say it clearly in the email. The email was pretty clear. If I must say so myself.
Clearly, I do not read.
I
don't do it very well. So.
There you go. You and Tyler Riddell together. That is not a category you want to be a part of. Well, let's keep on moving forward here, ladies and gentlemen. Alongside my guys Ian Schreier, Rob DeLuca, and Mike Szabo, I'm Joey Jarzynka. Cannot thank you all enough for joining us here on episode number 78. We had a phenomenal open to our show with Nick Filato, who was the writer and podcast host of Big Blue View and a member of the Pro Football Writers Association. We got a chance to talk about the New York Giants and, of course, preview Super Wildcard Weekend. But we shall continue on here. And let's get into some college basketball here, of course, because me and Mike Szabo got a chance to witness some really tough basketball yesterday. And credit to St. John's, where they were able to come back, tie the game up, or rather put the game almost away with 4.8 seconds to go on a Julian Champagny go-ahead triple, contested 3 from the near wing, but then all of a sudden on a deep home run ball, if you will, from the other side, which should have been let go and not touched. Dylan Adewusu tipped the ball, and then it was an inbounds play and advanced on the near side towards the basket. Really tough time because Tyrese Martin was just a quick shot away from winning the game. But Adama Sanogo then was sent to the line, and went 1 for 2 from the line, and that's the part where the two teams went into overtime, and UConn eventually went on a 10-0 run without the likes, of course, of Aaron Wheeler and Joel Soriano, because they both fouled out. Mike Szabo, I was there last night. You had the you were. I appreciate you inviting me on to WSJU's watch along yesterday. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It was a ton of fun for the few moments that both Kevin Connolly and myself got to join you, Chris Bello, and Tom Cavanaugh. What did you see last night in that contest at Gamble?
Well, first off, this is just it ultimately turned out to great how the score was, and it went to overtime. It was fun and everything. A frustrating game, honestly. Just to even forget about St. John's, UConn, or whatever. So watching as a neutral, I mean, there was a stretch in the second half where, I mean, both teams kind of went. I know UConn was like scoreless for nearly 5 minutes. I think 3 out of those 5 minutes in that stretch, both teams were scoreless. It was just really weird. I mean, like the 7-point lead that UConn had for most of the second half felt like a 17-point lead. It was just really strange. But for St. John's, it's a game where, again, you were right there, and it's one of those where you constantly you have sects of those people who are constantly addicted to the moral victory. Where if I had a penny for every single moral victory that the program has had over the years, I'd be a billionaire. But you had to accentuate the positive. St. John's probably had one of their better performances of the season. Didn't result in a win, but I think this was a game you came into, you were really scared that, like, oh my God, you're going on the road. UConn's size is just going to kill them. They are going to get blown out, and confidence is going to get shot for the next couple of games in which the schedule doesn't get any easier. But I was really glad that they responded the way they did. They were really in it the entire time. But so defensively, they're okay. But offensively, I mean, the execution was the amount of layups missed and the execution around the rim. I mean, if they would have gotten half of those opportunities in, I guarantee they would have won by 5 points or something like that. It was just really bad. I know people go. I know on Twitter yesterday, everybody's going nuts about the officials and all, but if they would have just finished those opportunities around the rim, they would have been in much better shape. Posh Alexander and Dylan Adewusu, Montez Mathis, I think were all like 7 for 30-something from the field. It was just not a really efficient performance from any of them, although Posh did eventually grind to double-double. But I think the biggest thing was that they didn't really have a lot of creativity in their offense, where this is not a shooting team where it's like, oh yeah, we avoid UConn's great paint defense by kicking it out and constantly shooting. That's not going to be a formula. But I always point to a play that happened in the second half where you saw RJ Cole and Adama Sanogo kind of get in sort of like a 2-man game where you'd have Whaley come out and screen for Cole. Cole's able to drive in, and then he draws the blockers, and then Sanogo's available on the backside. And it was like, why isn't St. John's running that more rather than you have Posh or Dylan? Or listen, I get you're confident in their ability. They're good players, but it's just so much overconfidence. These guys are undersized compared to UConn's bigs, and they're just driving in the lane. And Sanogo and the rest of them are like, all right, come on. UConn had 14 blocks. They just needed to figure out a way to move those UConn blockers around, because right when St. John's started to do that right toward the stretch of the game, when they started to move those blockers around, create driving lanes and whatnot, they actually started to get back in the game, and they eventually tied it. They moved those blockers out of the way. They were able to draw Sanogo out of the paint. They had lanes to get into the basket, and they occasionally would kick it out for Julian 3, or Aaron Wheeler was hot from behind the line for some stretches. And it was like, why didn't they do that earlier? It was kind of strange sometimes, the offensive approach and execution there. But I mean, once you go to overtime, I mean, I don't know, this team does not know how to win an overtime game. I don't know what it is for St. John's. It's not even under one coach or anything like that. It's just the thing that overtime always falls apart.
Mike, so for those that don't know, I was inside Gamble Pavilion the first time that I was ever there personally. One of the best college basketball buildings I've ever been in. My top two I actually have on Twitter is Pauley Pavilion and now Gamble Pavilion. I have not been to Finneran, so I can't, for all of those Villanova fans that are out there, I'm sorry, I have not been there yet. When I do, I'll definitely make my my impression there. I'll give you my thoughts on that. But from what we got a chance to see yesterday, Mike, you brought that up about, about the finishing around the rim and really moving Sanogo out of his comfort zone. Listen, this man had a career high 6 blocks against St. John's. He had 26 points, 10 of 17 from the floor, which obviously I think almost all of them were down low. 18 rebounds. It was something ridiculous. And then in addition to Julian Champagnie, we brought up 10 for 22, 27 points, 5 boards, 4 of 9 from deep. And obviously the most recent 3, the most notable 3, if you will, was with 4.8 seconds left.
Such a shame that shot went in front.
But the problem is,
went to nothing.
But the problem is, and we're going to get to Rob DeLuca in a second because I know he definitely has some comments as well, is that there needs to be more offensive help. Is that when Julian Champagnie is on his game, the rest of the team is not. You cannot have Posh Alexander and Dylan Adewusu combined for 2 for 14 from the floor at the end of 20 minutes of play against the UConn team. If those 2 players, guys, can get their game up, and yes, we did see Posh Alexander have 9 points in the second half. Great, but not enough. Aaron Wheeler had another great game. He followed up on a 15-point performance, which was his best at Providence. He did great, and his confidence is finally beginning to boost. Rob DeLuca, what did you get to see last night? We were all texting. Last night I was texting from press row, texting you, of course. Ian didn't respond because I hate him so much. But the problem is, though, is that, what you got to see yesterday with this St. John's team, what was it? Was it the free throw discrepancy? Was it the offense, the defense? Was it Julian not getting the help? What did you see there?
It's part Julian being alone out there, because when he's on, someone else needs to contribute. Usually it's just Julian and Posh going back and forth trading buckets when St. John's is on their game and they're looking like they're going to win a game. And I'll tell you what, that was some guts by Julian Champagnie to take that shot with 4.8 seconds.
He was feeling
it. That was a tough shot to take. It pressure in his face, and he takes the shot anyway and nails it. Me and my father being a St. John's alumni, we went insane when that shot went in. But we also knew there was too much time left on the clock, and sure enough, Sanogo being the problem that he was all night to St. John's, that big man for UConn, and you just knew he was going to go 1 for 2 at the line once he was fouled. And I'm not going to go. There's not enough time left to go on a tangent on why James Breeding should never have a job in officiating ever again. But we'll leave it at that. He's a horrible official, as is the rest of his crew. But
whoever he's paired with,
yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter because he brings down the whole thing. Honestly, from St. John's, it's just what you expect. Once it went to overtime, you kind of just had that feeling that it was going to get away from them, and sure enough, it got away from them. And that while they ended up covering the spread, which I'll be honest, I did not expect, they ended up losing by 8 in overtime. That's a pretty high margin for only a 5-minute period. So it's a tough loss to take, and I think overall you just got to move forward here. Get ready for Georgetown.
Well, UConn went on a 10-0 run in overtime because, again, you didn't have...
You can't have that if you want to win.
And the whole thing, though, is that because of the foul discrepancy, Aaron Wheeler and Joel Soriano were both out. And that's something, actually, that I should have asked yesterday.
But that's also another thing, Joey. Yeah, while the foul discrepancy was there, and these officials are the worst that have ever existed, UConn wasn't hitting their free throws either. That's what helped keep St. John's in the game anyway.
Yeah.
Is because they had a worse percentage than St. John's did from the line.
Ian Schreier, finish us off.
I have a great podcast for Rob DeLuca. We're going to call it Refs and Home Field. That's the that's the next podcast for Rob DeLuca.
Is that what we're going with, Ian?
Listen, I didn't get a chance to see the game last night. I was on assignment for the better part of the first half, and even when I got home, but for St. John's last night, and I think the three of you touched on every point perfectly, is just that they competed a lot more than I expected them to. I mean, look, the game went to overtime. Credit to Julian Champagny for hitting what really should have been the dagger of that game. I mean, that was, and I know video, and Joey captured the whole video of it and sent it to us, and just what an experience. And I've never been to Gamble, and I can only imagine for Joey what the experience was like being there. And not being at the XL Center in Hartford. It's just, that's what I also love so much about Carnesecca, is just the intimate atmosphere, and it's just a different style. It's what I miss even so much, and I haven't even been to not go off on a tangent here, but it's what I loved so much about the barn for the Islanders, right? It's just, there's just something about playing on your campus, playing at home, playing on the facility that's really yours. And I hate how everything with Division I college basketball is now turned to bigger arenas and bigger sites, and that's neither here nor there. But I couldn't believe that game went to overtime. This was a game I think we all expected UConn by at least 10. And to come out there, and I know Mike doesn't want to hear the words moral victory, but really that's what it was.
That's a good sign. You saw a good sign.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think this is going to result in a win against Georgetown on Sunday at the Garden. I think they've got two favorable games coming up. I know it's tough to win at Creighton. I know that's their next game after Georgetown, so we'll see with regards to COVID. Hopefully they get both those games in, and I know a couple of those games against the Hall that are coming up are also very much up in the air with what's going on in Jersey right now. But I think from a moral victory standpoint, this is great for St. John's. I think it should lead to a couple of victories coming up for the Storm as we get into games on Sunday and early next week.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that will conclude our main podcast. We're going to get to our credits, of course, our main coverage, if you will, or what was the other word that I was thinking off the top of my head? Main course, if you will, of our podcast. Now let's get to the dessert part here. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, please subscribe to our podcast by searching the Primetime Rundown on the following platforms: Odyssey, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Music, and the Google Play Store. And if you want to see all of our gorgeous faces, please go on to YouTube and search The Eastern Observer. Also, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to subscribe to the Essential Wrestling Podcast. They will return on Tuesday night, which is January 18th, right here on the Eastern Observer. Please join them starting at 5 p.m. Al Carl, Ryan Joy, John DeConnie, John Smith, and Gary Mehevi bring you the latest in all of wrestling. And all of the episodes from them can be viewed on all of the following platforms as well that we had mentioned before. Also, ladies and gentlemen, of course, we cannot forget our kudos. Ian Schreier, let's make that one quick. What do we got?
Yeah, sure. I know I'm hoping that this MLB lockout is going to come to an end sooner rather than later. But in the meantime, the Mets had a very good bit of news this week, and I want to honor the great Keith Hernandez, who's set to have his number retired by the New York Mets on Saturday, July 9th. I know that many Mets have since worn 17, and for a guy who has had the what's the best way to describe it? The guy who has probably been the most clutch player and the best defender probably in Mets franchise history. Keith Hernandez getting his uniform number retired, which another thing I love about Steve Cohen as Mets owner, he's really paying homage to the greats that have worn the numbers of the New York Mets. And this is just a continuation from last year with Jerry Kuzman. So congratulations, Keith.
DeLuca.
Yeah, mine are quick. We're going to give a little shout out to Kyle Shapiro. Now, I'm sure none of you know who that is. Kyle Shapiro is a New Jersey Titans NAHL assistant coach right up here in North Jersey. He is currently sitting on the New Jersey Devils bench at UBS Arena as the backup goaltender because Mackenzie Blackwood and Akira Schmid have COVID-19 right now. So only John Gillies was available, and Nico Dawes down in Utica is injured. So Utica is currently using an ECHL goaltender and a guy who is they're using guys rotating on tryouts right now. So those guys cannot legally come up. Only Merrick Meetens could from the ECHL, but they're using him in Utica, so they're not going to do that. So they just randomly found some emergency backup. Kyle Shapiro getting the full NHL experience, being on the bench as backup contender, just a beautiful thing.
Mike Szabo, your the final one.
So this week we had the MLS Super Draft, and I just want to give kudos for the 3 St. John's players that were picked. Lucas Bartlett getting the highest pick in the MLS Super Draft in St. John's program history at number 6. Then you had Tanny Owashe at 17 to Minnesota United. And then Luka Gavrin went in the second round to Toronto. Congrats to them on a great collegiate career. Best of luck to them in the pros.
Well, you took my kudos. Congratulations to the first ever draft pick in the MLS Super Draft in St. Francis, Brooklyn history. And the reason why that I bring up my former employer is because that team made a mark on me personally. That team made a mark on me in my professional career as well. And I got a chance to see Elmedi Yusufi get drafted in the 3rd round, 84th overall to NYC FC, to the New York City Football Club. Congratulations to Elmedi Yusufi, who is one of the best soccer players that I have ever seen in my day watching soccer, which started about 6 months ago when I started watching him. But all joking aside, though, congratulations to the first ever MLS Super Draftee in the Northeast Conference, as well as St. Francis Brooklyn. Really amazing stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, one final time for my guys, Ian Schreier, Rob DeLuca, Mike Szabo. I'm Joey Jarzynka. For all of us here at the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Group, we'll see you next time.